The stars blinked cold and silent across the vast screen of Commander Elira Tran's scout vessel, the Vigilant Ray, as she floated near the edge of the uncharted Veil sector, a region of space most dared not enter. The comms officer had picked up something unusual, a faint signal buried beneath layers of radiation and distortion, transmitting in an old Terran protocol that hadn't been used in over a decade. Curious and cautious, Elira ordered the signal traced, and what they found sent shockwaves through her crew. It was the ID code of the Dauntless, a legendary Terran deep space ship that had vanished 17 years ago without a trace, presumed lost with all hands. No wreckage, no distress calls, only silence until now. As they followed the signal into the dense fog of the Veil, strange anomalies began to affect their systems, minor glitches. Compass readings, flipping, faint whisper like noises through the intercom that no one could trace. Then, as if the mist itself parted for them, the Dauntless appeared scarred, battered, and yet eerily intact, drifting quietly in zero spin like a corpse staring at the stars. Her hull showed signs of aging far beyond 17 years. Portions of the plating were fused with unknown alloys, and the ship's lights flickered in unnatural pulses like a heartbeat out of rhythm. Against protocol, Elira made the call she would board the vessel herself, accompanied by a small recon team. They docked cautiously, airlocks hissing in protest, as if they hadn't been opened in decades. Inside, the Dauntless was a ghost ship, silent corridors stretched into darkness, but the ship still had power, though the source was undetectable. Her crew moved in slowly, weapons ready, scanning for life signs, but the readings were erratic flashes of movement, but nothing solid. The walls were engraved with unfamiliar patterns, glowing faintly, and the air was breathable but felt wrong. A hallway led them toward the bridge, where the doors opened without prompt, welcoming them inside. What they saw made everyone freeze. The bridge was clean, organized, the chairs and consoles pristine, and standing in the center, as if nothing had changed, was Captain Arlen Rowan, who should have been dead for over a decade. His hair had grayed, his uniform bore symbols not belonging to any known Terran branch, and his eyes glowed faintly with a light not entirely natural. Elira raised her weapon, demanding answers, but Rowan simply smiled and spoke in flawless galactic standard. "Welcome back, Commander Tran. We've been expecting you." The silence that followed pressed like weight on her chest. How did he know her name? How did he know she would come? Before she could speak, the ship's lights pulsed again, this time in rhythm with her own heart, and the consoles lit up, displaying images of star charts she had never seen before, some showing the current galaxy, others depicting places that defied known physics. The atmosphere in the room thickened, as if the ship itself was alive, watching, listening. Rowan stepped forward, calm and composed, and said, "The Dauntless didn't vanish, it was chosen." He explained nothing more. Not yet. Only said the ship had been somewhere else beyond known space, where time bent and knowledge came not from learning, but from understanding. Elira didn't believe him, not fully, but the undeniable truth was that the Dauntless was here, and Rowan was alive, and whatever had happened, it was far from ordinary. Her crew found no bodies, but signs of habitation quarters used, food stores replenished with unfamiliar rations, technology embedded into the ship that no Terran engineer could identify. The Dauntless was no longer just a lost ship, it was something else, something more. And as the Vigilant Ray tried to hail Unity Command, all outgoing signals were blocked by an unknown force. Then, as the Dauntless powered its engines on its own, preparing to move, Elira realized with a chill that she was no longer in control of the mission. Whatever had changed the Dauntless was not done yet. And somewhere in the void, something ancient had started watching humanity again. Elira Tran stood frozen on the bridge of the Dauntless, her eyes locked on Captain Rowan, who hadn't aged as he should have, his face lined, but not broken by time, his voice steady, calm, and disturbingly sure. Around her, her team whispered quietly, uncertain whether to lower their weapons or prepare for something worse. The ship groaned faintly, not from stress, but like something stretching after a long sleep. Rowan gestured for her to follow, and despite the warnings in her head, she did. They walked through the ship's corridors, ones that should have been filled with dust and decay, but instead they looked altered, as if reshaped from the inside. Strange markings ran across the walls, faintly glowing blue or green depending on the angle. No one could translate them. The deeper they went, the more Elira noticed something strange. Her boots felt lighter, gravity subtly shifting, her thoughts slightly clearer, even sharper, like the ship was enhancing her mind. Finally, they entered what used to be the medbay, now transformed into a chamber of polished black walls, humming softly with quiet energy. Inside stood 5 more survivors, each one familiar in face but strange in presence. They moved with quiet grace, their skin slightly paler, their eyes brighter, their movements too precise. Rowan introduced them: Dr. Vela, Engineer Haroon, Security Chief Maya, Navigator Exi, and Communications Officer Ben. All were marked the same way, eyes glowing faintly, their voices smooth, lacking any tremble. Elira asked how they had survived, and the story they told made her shiver. The Dauntless had fallen into something they called the Fold, a space not mapped, not charted, not understood. Time didn't pass normally there. The ship had crashed into what seemed like nothingness, but there was structure, life, and something else: beings they called the Architects. These entities didn't speak through sound or words, but through thoughts and visions, and over years, or what felt like years, the crew learned, adapted, and slowly changed. The Dauntless became a vessel, not just of metal, but of purpose. The survivors didn't say they were saved, they said they were chosen. Elira asked what that meant, and none of them gave a straight answer. Dr. Vela showed her a chamber beneath the medbay, filled with tech beyond anything Elira had seen. Small floating crystals hummed and spun on their own, producing energy far above standard fusion cores. Displays moved without being touched, responding to thoughts, not commands. They had learned to connect mind and machine in ways the rest of humanity hadn't even dreamed of. When Elira demanded to know what price they had paid, Maya looked her in the eyes and simply said, "We're not quite what we were." She wasn't joking. Medical scans showed their bodies were still human, but with changes, brainwave patterns shifted, cell repair accelerated, and faint electromagnetic fields pulsed from their skin. It was evolution forced forward by something unknown. Elira struggled to hide her fear. These weren't just survivors, they were something new. Her team grew uneasy, especially as they discovered more about the ship's systems. The Dauntless no longer needed traditional engines. It bent space around itself gently, floating through folds of gravity rather than pushing through vacuum. Shields were active constantly. Powered by ambient energy, the ship seemed to draw from space itself. But perhaps most disturbing was the central core, the ship's new heart. It pulsed like a living thing, guarded closely by the crew, and when asked what it was, Rowan only said, "It's not from here, but it listens to us." Elira didn't like that answer. She sent urgent reports to Unity Command, but still, their outgoing messages vanished into silence. Then something happened that changed everything. One of her officers, a young lieutenant named Riza, touched one of the glowing walls for too long. He collapsed, eyes wide open, whispering things he shouldn't have known: coordinates to star systems never mapped, names of people long dead, and symbols that matched those carved into the hull. When he woke up, his voice was calm, but he looked different, like he had seen something he wasn't meant to. Rowan wasn't surprised. "The ship shares what it wants," he said, not sounding worried. Elira demanded answers, demanded to know whether this was a rescue or an invasion, and Rowan looked at her with sad eyes. "We didn't choose this. But now we have to carry it." The crew of the Dauntless wasn't planning to return home empty-handed. They had a mission, though they didn't fully understand it themselves. Something was coming, something the Architects feared, and the Dauntless had been changed to help humanity prepare. But time was short, and trust was even shorter. Some of Elira's crew wanted to leave immediately, to escape whatever force had taken hold of the Dauntless. Others were drawn to the knowledge, to the impossible beauty of it all. Elira stood in the corridor one night, watching the glowing walls breathe gently with energy, wondering if the ship was truly alive. She looked at Rowan again, once a respected captain, now something else, and realized that this wasn't just a lost ship. It was a message, a warning. And maybe a test. The Dauntless hadn't returned by accident. It had come back changed, not to be recovered, but to show what humanity might become, or what it might lose in trying. As Elira turned to leave, the lights dimmed again, and the voice of the ship echoed softly through the halls, not from speakers, but from the very metal. "We are not alone, and the others are waking." The return of the Dauntless sparked waves of excitement and fear across the Terran Federation and beyond, its reappearance defying all expectations and shaking the very foundations of galactic science. As the Dauntless docked at Earth's orbital station, the impossible technology it carried was immediately studied under the highest security protocols. Scientists and engineers from every discipline gathered to examine the new energy cores that seemed to draw limitless power from the vacuum of space, the ship's ability to warp space around itself without visible engines, and the technology that allowed near-instant communication across light years, defying the usual delays that bound known space. The Unity Council faced a dilemma. On one side stood the promise of a new era of faster travel, cleaner energy, and a chance for humanity to leapfrog centuries of technological development. On the other, there was deep suspicion and fear that this power came with a hidden cost, something the returning crew had not fully explained. Commander Elira Tran watched as the dauntless crew began training Earth's best minds, sharing fragments of the knowledge they'd gained, but holding back the most critical secrets, those locked behind the strange glowing symbols that pulsed throughout the ship's core. Rumors spread through the council chambers and among the galactic embassies. What had happened to the Dauntless? Were its crews still fully human, or something beyond? And who, or what, were the architects that Rowan and his team had mentioned so cryptically? Alien delegates expressed open concern, whispering about a possible shift in galactic power. Some feared humanity might soon wield a force that could upset the delicate balance of peace. Saboteurs tried to infiltrate the research teams, hoping to steal or destroy the technology before it could change the galaxy forever. But the humans responded with calm determination, deploying defensive measures powered by the very technology they had recovered. Non-lethal, but overwhelmingly effective, these new defenses quelled threats before they could erupt into violence. Yet, beneath the surface of scientific breakthroughs and political maneuvering, a quiet urgency grew. Captain Rowan warned Elira in private that the return of the Dauntless was only the beginning. The ancient beings known as the Architects had opened a door, and something was coming through a presence beyond understanding. Elira's mind raced as she connected the dots. The mysterious star-like phenomenon observed near Earth's orbit, the sudden surges of energy, and the unexplained disturbances in the communications array all pointed to one truth: humanity had stepped onto a new stage, one not just of technology, cosmic significance. The Unity Council reluctantly agreed to expand research into the Dauntless's core technology and to prepare the fleet with modified vessels that used the new power sources. The military training was unlike anything seen before. Pilots reported that the ships responded almost as if they were alive, anticipating threats and adapting in real time. Elira herself was invited to command the first fleet squadron equipped with this technology, a symbol that humanity was ready to protect its future. Yet, not all embraced this dawn. Some scientists expressed unease as they studied the changes in the Dauntless crew. Their biology was subtly altered, their minds capable of processing information faster and perceiving realities beyond normal senses. Ethical debates erupted about the risks of pushing human evolution too fast, too far. And rumors began to circulate that the crew had not fully returned. They carried within them the essence of the Architects, or at least a connection to them that could not be severed. As tensions rose, Elira received a message from Rowan that chilled her more than any enemy weapon. The Architects watch, but they do not interfere yet. When the time comes, they will test us. We must be ready. Meanwhile, on the edges of known space, new signals were detected, echoes of the Fold, where the Dauntless had vanished, and where it had gained its impossible knowledge. Alien races who had once regarded humanity as insignificant now approached cautiously, some with offers of alliance, others with veiled threats. Humanity was no longer just a young species in the galaxy. It was a rising force, wielding a power that could change everything. Elira stood on Earth's observation deck one evening, watching the strange new star pulse with silent intensity. It was a reminder that the universe was watching, and that humanity's second dawn was just beginning, not just as explorers, but as a race poised on the edge of something greater, something both wondrous and terrifying. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with promise and peril, but one thing was clear. The Dauntless had returned, carrying more than just a lost crew. It carried a future waiting to be claimed. The strange star that had appeared near Earth was no ordinary celestial body. It was a gateway, a living portal crafted by the architects, ancient beings whose presence stretched back beyond recorded history and whose power dwarfed that of entire star systems. Commander Elira Tran watched the sky as the gateway pulsed with a steady rhythm, casting strange shadows on Earth's surface and disrupting communication signals across the solar system. The Unity Council scrambled to understand the message being broadcast from the gateway, but it was not words or numbers. It was a flood of visions, cryptic images that filled the minds of those who dared to look too long, patterns of light, shapes that bent reality, and warnings of a great cosmic upheaval. The architects, it seemed, had awoken fully, and their gaze now rested upon humanity as more than just a curious species. Rowan, once captain of the Dauntless, now the link between humanity and the architects, stood beside Elira as she tried to make sense of the incomprehensible. He told her that the ancient beings did not seek conquest, nor were they gods, but custodians of cosmic order. Their awakening meant the universe itself was on the brink of change, a test for all intelligent life. The architects sent word through the gateway. Humanity had been chosen to face this test, to rise beyond their limitations or face oblivion. Fear rippled through the Unity Council and alien embassies alike. Old rivalries were set aside as species debated what this test meant and how to prepare. Some called for war, fearing humanity's newfound power was a threat. Others hoped for peace, believing that cooperation was the only way forward. The Terran fleet, now equipped with the Dauntless's impossible technology, stood ready not for war but for defense, their ships alive with a power that melded machine and mind. When hostile forces gathered at the edge of the solar system, intent on striking first, they were met not with death but with mercy. The fleet disabled enemy weapons silently and quickly, sending a clear message that humanity's strength was tempered by wisdom. Yet behind this show of power was a deeper truth. The Dauntless crew and their connection to the architects allowed humanity to perceive beyond the normal senses, to see the underlying threads of reality, and to understand the true stakes of the coming challenge. Elira and Rowan worked together to prepare Earth's people for what was ahead, guiding them to unlock the latent potential within their minds, teaching patience, unity, and resilience. But as the gateway continued to pulse, the warning became clear. The architects themselves would soon arrive in physical form, to witness the choices humanity made and to judge their readiness to join the cosmic order. In the final hours before their arrival, the atmosphere on Earth was tense yet hopeful. Citizens worldwide looked up, unsure whether to fear or embrace the unknown. Elira stood once more on the observation deck, her heart steady despite the weight of responsibility. The gateway opened wider, a rift in space that shimmered with impossible colors, and through it stepped forms not like anything humanity had imagined, vast, radiant beings whose presence radiated both power and ancient wisdom. They did not speak with words, but their minds reached out, sharing a vision of the universe's vast interconnectedness, the fragile balance between creation and destruction, and the crucial role humanity now played. Elira felt a calm wash over her as she understood their purpose. They were here not to judge but to guide, to offer a path forward for those willing to grow. The coming days would test humanity's spirit, unity, and courage. But with the architects awake, a new chapter in galactic history had begun, one where humanity would either rise to its destiny or be lost to the dark silence of space. The day the architects fully revealed themselves, the world held its breath as the sky above Earth shimmered with colors unseen before, the air charged with an energy that thrummed through every living thing. Commander Elira Tran stood at the forefront, her heart steady, but her mind racing with the weight of what was to come. The great beings, the architects, were vast and radiant, their forms shifting like light and shadow intertwined, neither fully solid nor completely ethereal. They did not speak aloud, Yet their thoughts reached deep into the minds of those gathered below, offering knowledge and a challenge that echoed through the collective consciousness of humanity. This challenge was not a test of weapons or technology, but of spirit, unity, and the ability to embrace change beyond fear. The dauntless crew, now fully merged with the knowledge of the architects, became guides and teachers, helping humanity unlock dormant parts of the mind that allowed perception beyond the physical world. Cities around the globe began to pulse with a new energy as people learned to harness the strange gifts the Dauntless brought back. Communication expanded beyond sound and symbols, reaching through emotions and thoughts. The boundaries between individuals blurred, replaced by a shared sense of purpose and understanding. But this awakening was not without struggle. Old fears and divisions surfaced, some rejecting the change, clinging to the familiar and resisting the unknown. The Unity Council faced uprisings from factions that saw the architects as a threat, plotting to sever the connection and return humanity to its former limited state. Elira worked tirelessly to unite leaders and citizens, reminding them that this was humanity's second dawn, an opportunity to rise or fall as one. As the world adapted, the Dauntless's technology was integrated into every facet of life. Ships capable of bending space sped through the galaxy, opening new frontiers for exploration and diplomacy. Medicine advanced rapidly, curing diseases once thought incurable, extending life, and enhancing human potential. Despite these leaps, the architects warned that this was only the beginning. The universe was vast, and many challenges lay ahead, not least from other species that eyed humanity's rapid rise with envy and suspicion. The final test, they said, was yet to come, a trial that would determine if humanity was ready to join the cosmic order as equals or remain bound by their old limitations. In the quiet moments between crises, Elira found herself standing alone on the observation deck of the Dauntless, gazing into the stars that now seemed less distant, less unreachable. She felt a profound connection to all life, a part of something greater than herself. The future was uncertain, filled with wonders and dangers, but humanity had crossed a threshold, one from which there was no turning back. As the sun rose on this new era, Elira knew that humanity was not just surviving but ascending, becoming a light in the dark, a force of hope and change in a universe waiting to be discovered. The Dauntless had brought back impossible technology, but more than that, it had carried home the spark of evolution, the spark that would ignite humanity's destiny among the stars.